Hello, I'm Jeff Coleman, and this is News 6. This week, the program is brought to you by the students of Central School of Bryan, Ohio. Bryan is the seat of Williams County, which borders both Michigan on the north and Indiana on the west. With the bicentennial year just passed, the historic features of the town, such as the old courthouse heat tunnel, run together with the vision of the town's future with the planning of a time capsule for the coming generations of Bryan. One of the more interesting people, which came out of the bicentennial hodgepodge of past, present, and future, was a high diver. The daredevil was Harry Six. He jumped from a platform 110 feet high into a canvas pool 4 feet deep, 6 feet wide, and 10 feet long. Mr. Six finally went blind due to the pressure of the water on his eyes. When he died, he was buried in the Fountain City Cemetery. Bryan is known as Fountain City because of the abundance of natural fountains of water in the community. Anthony Vasconcellos, Rick Bear, and I asked former Bryan Mayor Paul Van Gundy about the first fountain found in the community.
The town was surveyed in the fall of 1840, and in 1841 the first house first log house was built on the south side of the square. And that was where a man by the name of Daniel Wyatt started to dig a well. In those days, well, you dug a well by hand. And he didn't get the well finished toward night, so he waited. But by the next morning, the water was running right out of the top of his well and across the ground. And that was the first fountain that was found in Bryan.
In 1864, Professor T.S. Wormley came to study the fountains, some which flowed at a barrel a minute. He found over 300 fountains, some flowing as fast as 35,000 gallons a day. But as time passed, the fountains dried up. Now, all that remains is the name Fountain City. Here's Rachel King with stories about prominent citizens of Bryan.
Thank you, Jeff. One project in the community involved over 17,000 citizens, and that was the repairing of the courthouse's 4 clocks. The money raised to repair the clocks were raised by selling minutes of the time on the clock to anyone who wanted to buy it. Marson Mannon interviewed Mr. Dwayne Fox, who was employed by the Spangler Candy Company and was the chairman of the Time Owners Association. He explained that the idea was conceived by Eldon Smith and was promoted by WBNO, the local radio station. The success of the drive speaks for itself. The goal was to raise $6,000, which was exceeded by $2,000. One particularly prominent citizen is Lowell Wilson. Mr. Wilson is the marketing director at Ohio Art because he is also the inventor of the Weeble, those little people who wobble but don't fall down. Brett Hanna, Lisa Pristis, Melanie Newman, and Shane Stevens talked to Mr. Wilson on how he came up with the Weeble and how it was named.
The name came, I'll answer the second question first. The name came because they were wee little people that wobbled. So we put the two elements together and came up with Weebles. The idea of the toy came because there were other little toys, there were other little people being sold as toys, but they didn't move, they just stood still. So I just kind of thought that if you could add motion to one of these little toys, it would be a distinct advantage over the other things that were on the market. So Weebles wobble and don't fall down. That was the cell line that we attached to Weebles, and they were shaped. The shape was a very important thing. Through testing with children, we found that they liked the shape of the Weeble. It kind of fit in their hand. It was easy to hold on to. And that's a very subtle thing, but I guess it was very important because Weebles have been very successful.
Mr. Wilson also showed us a new toy which came out of the Weeble folks. They're called walkers, which not only wobble, but walk. One citizen of Bryan is high in the community and is really going places. You see, he's a balloonist. Jim Wheeler has been flying a hot air balloon since 1970 and has been up as high as 10,000 feet, where even though it was a hot August day on the surface, it was 5 above zero in the balloon. Alan Dietrich, Norman Rowan, and Mike Mike Bish and David Pacey asked Mr. Wheeler what he'd like to do someday.
Well, in the back of my mind, I think all balloonists entertain thoughts of trips to one degree or another. I suppose you're most likely you would like to know about something like an Atlantic crossing. Well, it's in the back of my mind, but I really don't have any plans for something like that. But as far as our own continent's concerned, I have thought about perhaps trying to cross our continent someday in a gas balloon, but whether I would do it or not would depend on the being able to find the sponsorship and the equipment.
We thank Mr. Wheeler and all the other interviewed guests for their time and information. Now we're to Brett Hanna with news about the school.
Thank you, Rachel. There's a lot of unusual things going on at our school, including a student lounge, which gives the students a place to meet their friends besides the hall, a group of students who are raising money to go to Europe, and a classmate, David Waller, who has 69 stuffed and ceramic pigs. Our class chorus has been working on an updated version of The Music Man, which has Professor Hill coming to Bryan. Here's a part of Professor Hill's speech.
I think I can help you. Yes, I can. Music is the answer, and I'm the man. I see kids hanging around the pizza parlor in their jeans, playing and betting on the pinball machine, reading magazines with big centerfolds, chewing bubble gum and playing rock and roll. They're staying up late and watching TV. Homework isn't done. Eyes can hardly see. They're skipping their lunch and eating junk food, going to the bakery and acting real rude, going out without their coats even when it rains. KISS is the group they're all wild about. Tell your friends trouble, so just watch out.
Mrs. June Webster is directing the play, and it will be given sometime before the end of the year. Another project at the school is the club known as OSAC, which stands for Outstanding Students of Central. It was started by Mr. Birchfield, our principal, who thought that we should have a way of recognizing the outstanding students in the building. Every Friday, a new member is added to the group. Grades are not the only thing that counts. Citizenship and good behavior are also considered. Now over to Lori Sander with more news from Central School.
Thank you, Brett. We have a member of our 6th grade class whose background is different than the rest of us. Rupak Patel came to Bryan from Bombay, India. He and his family moved here last October because of the political situation in India. Rupak says the school here is easier than it is in India and the weather is not as harsh. But overall, he says that life in Bryan is as he expected. Mr. Paul Webster, biology teacher at the high school, has been teaching for 25 years. Each day, kids come to his room to visit all the animals he keeps there. He started bringing animals to class because he wanted the students to gain appreciation for living things. His class contains animals such as guinea pigs and an owl. Mr. Webster's biggest success came in 1954 when he became president of the National Association of Biology Teachers. On Friday, March the 11th, the 6th grade put on a talent show. There were a variety of acts, including songs, dances, plays, and skits. One unusual act was chickens that were made out of wood with strings attached to the mouths. Then a chicken record was used and the mouths were synchronized to the record. These shows have been going on for the past 10 years under the direction of Mrs. Webster. Now back to Jeff.
Thank you, Lori. Well, that wraps it up for this edition of News 6. The students and teachers of the Central School of Bryan, Ohio wish you a good day.